On this episode, I'm going to interview Gerard Adams and the founder of the Shorty Awards. Welcome to Real Talk. I am your host, Carlos Gill, coming at you from New York City at NASDAQ Studios in Times Square. My first guest today is a serial entrepreneur. He is also known as the Millennial Mentor, and his name is Gerard Adams. Gerard, welcome to Real Talk.
Thank you, Carlos. This is exciting. NASDAQ, Times Square. Appreciate you bringing me on the show.
Absolutely. It's great to be able to connect with you in person. We've been following each other on social media for quite some time. And look, let's jump right into it. I'm a big fan of your work. You have a great story. You're a co-founder of Elite Daily, which is a company that you exited handsomely in a few years ago. Your exit was about, what, 50 million?
Yep.
And, you know, we want to talk on this episode a little bit more about your upbringings, your come up, but as well as going beyond Elite Daily. What are you doing today? So you're from New Jersey.
Yeah.
You were telling me off the set that your first business was at 18 or 19 years old.
Yep.
And you've always been an entrepreneur. Is that correct?
Well, no. I mean, I didn't even know really what an entrepreneur was when I was growing up. I mean, I think that's why a lot of the work that I do today with the youth is to instill entrepreneurship at a young age. But I guess it was in my DNA. I didn't really know that it was claimed an entrepreneur. You know, I was always like a natural born hustler, you know, with my neighborhood, whether it was shoveling snow, selling teas, lollipops, I mean, you name it. But I definitely believe that entrepreneurship like saved my life. Once I, you know, kind of made a huge shift in my teens from going down the wrong path that could have led me, you know, really, whether in jail, potentially maybe dead, and, you know, I basically got away from that lifestyle to deciding to go into business, really learn about how can I channel my hustle mentality into business. And that's when I really started to learn more about entrepreneurship, and, you know, never looked back since
So
then.
did you go to college?
So I wanted to make my parents proud because I was going down that wrong path, and I had a second chance. You know, it's a long story. I talk about it at my TEDx, you know, almost getting arrested. And that's when I decided to follow the path that was apparently the way for us to become successful. But I dropped out my first semester. I felt like college was a big business in itself. And, you know, getting you into debt, telling you what classes to take in order for you to earn credits to get into the, you know, the classes that you're looking to take within your major. And for me, it just was too slow paced, and I was ready to take on the world. So I dropped out, took a big shot, found a mentor, and then really we just went all in.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. A little bit about me that you might not know, a lot of folks out there don't, is I actually dropped out of high school at 17. And my first job was actually selling shoes at a mall in South Florida, close to Miami, where I'm from. And I can definitely relate to your story. The School of Hard Knocks is really where you learn what ultimately the soft skills that carry you throughout your career, such as sales and people skills and communication. And I'm with you. I think school is a big conspiracy, not to say that there's no value in it, but ultimately what you learn in the real world is where it's at.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You know, I'm pro-education, of course. I just think it's about, you know, I've learned this, and I was someone that at this point in my career was like, I want to disrupt education. And now it's more so like, I just want to evolve education. You know, it was a system that worked at one point, you know, when, you know, we wanted people to be able to work factory jobs and things like that. And there was those type of systems, and I feel like class was built around that. But there's a whole new tech economy. There's a whole new gig economy. The world has changed, and with that, the education system needs to continue to evolve. And a lot of the core skills that have made me successful, like emotional intelligence, financial literacy, leadership skills, sales skills, things like you're talking about, communication skills, learning even just how to fail and overcome those failures, right? Just mindset and personal development, like basically skills. All of that, I feel like, really isn't being incorporated, but you know, it's definitely part of my purpose now to help evolve that education system and start to bring those skills to the youth.
Now, before we talk about what you're doing with the youth and with education, you mentioned the word failure before.
Yeah.
And I'm a big proponent in you have to fail before you can go ahead and succeed.
Yeah.
And failure really is a mindset. But let's talk about you, because a lot of folks, I think they focus on the $50 million exit from Elite Daily. I think a lot of folks, they see your content creation through your personal brand and think, this guy's so successful, he's probably never struggled a day in his life. So tell me about a time in which you were just down and out and you thought, I am not going to be able to get over this hump.
I'm going to be honest. I actually just talked about this at a speech a couple weeks ago. But, like, it's all the time, right? Like, I'm human. We're all human. Like, I think, like, anybody who's an entrepreneur, I think anybody, period, basically. But for me, like, I can relate to people that are out there solving problems, going after their dreams. Like, it's constant up and down. It's a constant struggle. There's a constant, pushing yourself and having to overcome, the stress or the anxiety, certain things. And I think you need to continue to keep, that's why really working on that mindset muscle is so important. But like just a couple weeks ago, I was like, things were going wrong, and a couple instances within my company, I had, a couple people that I had to let go of, and found out something about the back end of my the tech that I had to fix, and then it was, one thing led to another. It was just one of those days where I just driving to the office, I was just like, I don't know, maybe this is, maybe I need to take a step back for a second, maybe I need to reevaluate things. And I think it's in those moments that you are down and out and you have that moment. I realize, like, that's when you're really close. And if you push through, like, it's crazy how you can start to gain that momentum and things can shift so quickly. But yeah, throughout my entire life, I've had to overcome those kind of moments. But I think I learned this from one of my mentors, Naveen Jain. He's a self-made billionaire, and basically he said, it's pretty simple, right? You only truly fail as an entrepreneur if you quit. And you're going to have to adapt. You're going to have to learn how to pivot, and I've had to do that throughout my entire career. But you got to overcome those obstacles and push yourself through, because on the other side, like, that's part of, like, your story, and it's what makes it great when you actually do persevere and you actually do have those moments of achievement and success. It makes it all worth it. If you can't have the good without the bad.
So maybe speak to someone out there that's just getting started and they look at you as a role model, and as a figure, and they say, this guy's really successful. He does not struggle a single day in his life while I'm sitting here, trying to make ends meet and make my rent. What is it that you do, and what would you say to that person watching out there in order to keep them motivated, keep their head up above water?
So I would say first and foremost, for me, it's been like who I surround myself with. So both from a perspective of mentors in my life, so find a mentor. For me, that's been a game changer for me throughout my entire life. I continue to seek out mentorship, okay? And then two, like, your circle. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Because you need to be surrounding yourself with people that are pushing, empowering you, fueling you, not that negativity. I would say two, put away the phone and, like, stop comparing yourself to everybody else. Take some time to look within and stop looking for answers externally. Start taking some time internally to figure out why you are doing what you're doing, right? Like, really understand why you're doing it. How is it playing into your purpose in life, as to, because I think if you don't have that core purpose, like, you will quit eventually. It has to be so innate inside of you. And then three, get a routine. Like, really master your routine. Regardless of what's happening with your business, regardless of the things that are going wrong, master your routine, right? Are you getting good sleep? Are you writing down your goals the night before? Are you waking up early? Are you exercising? What are you putting, what is your intake? Are you taking some time to read a little bit, every day? Or listen to a podcast, or watch a show like Leaders Create Leaders,
Which is a great show, by the way.
Thank you. But just get a routine going for yourself and stick to that routine, because that's what's gonna get you into being a Spartan to get through it.
Now, we're going to come back to Leaders Create Leaders, as well as you mentioned the phone before in social media. Speaking of social media, one of your fans actually wrote in on Twitter and asked a question which aligns with mentors and role models.
Cool.
And what she wants to know here directly from you is, who is your role model, if you had to pick one person?
Wow. One person Who is my role model if I would have to pick one person right now? I have a lot of role models, but I always love to give answers that come to my mind, like, quickly. And most recently, I've been talking about him. His name's Howard Tillman.
Okay.
He is one of the greatest entrepreneurs that I have ever met. He's not someone who may be like all over the spotlight and someone who, social media followers. No, he's a man of true impact in our country. He built the largest incubator in the country, known as 1871 in Chicago. He gave me a tour. I met him on the first tech adventure to Cuba, and he's created thousands of jobs. He's decreased crime rates. He's given back to the youth. He has done everything from venture capital to just helping young men and women get started, and learn the fundamentals. And he's someone that I genuinely look up to as a role model.
Okay. The follow-up to that question from Twitter also was, there are a fair amount of stories about overcoming shyness on your website. What did you do to overcome it?
So it was always a dream of mine to meet a Navy SEAL, and I was lucky enough to meet, his name is Paul. I met him during Memorial Day weekend. It couldn't have been a better time. This was about 2 years ago. Okay. We built a relationship, and one thing that he taught me that stuck with me so much, he goes, Gerard, no matter what in life, answer these 3 questions. And if the answer to these 3 questions is yes, and as long as it doesn't impede on someone else's happiness, you do it, and it will help build your character. So those questions are, 1, is it the hard thing for you to do? Is it the most uncomfortable thing for you to do? And is it the most uncertain thing for you to do in the world? And if those answers are yes, right, because you're shy, every one of us goes through those moments. Like we talked about it, even doing our shows, right, and going on stage, or going in, getting ready to pitch an investor. But if the answer is yes, it's hard, it's uncomfortable, it's uncertain, just do it, because it's going to be the one thing that's going to cause the most growth in your life.
Gerard, one of the things that you mentioned before is the phone and social media. I know you're a big proponent of personal branding, as am I, but a lot of folks nowadays are looking at the highlight reel.
Yeah.
They're seeing the NASDAQ, the speaking engagements, they're seeing leaders create leaders. They're seeing the highlights, they're not necessarily seeing the lowlights. I know for me personally, I'm a parent, and I keep offline intentionally my kids, and I keep the focus on what you see, which is the business professional. It seems like you do a lot of the same, is that correct?
Yeah, and it's something that I've really committed myself to showing even more vulnerability, now. I think that's, to me, that's real influence. And, millennials throw out the term authenticity and wanting, real authenticity. And, ultimately, I think those real vulnerable human moments that we all have in our lives from all different walks of life, the more that you can tap into that and share that, I think that's where, you become truly relatable, you become an authority, you become someone of real influence, and it's less about the followers, but it's more about, truly your story.
Let's talk about influence for a moment. I often say, if you really want to become an influencer, you have to teach people. You have to teach people how to change their life.
Yeah.
Even if it's something that's as small as teaching someone how to be vulnerable and ask for help. I often say to folks, people don't want to see what car you drive. They don't care about what house you live in. But guess what? If you ask your social network for help, for example, I've lost a job before. I've lost multiple jobs before. And every single time I've gone through that challenge in my life, what have I done? I've gone on LinkedIn, I've gone to Twitter, and I've said, hey, I just lost my job today. If anyone out there has any leads. Because again, that's what makes you relatable. And the key word I think is real. We're here on Real Talk, but that's something that's often lost on social media. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And it's something right now that, I'm trying to really push as a role model. And I work with a lot of clients right now that are looking to build the personal brand, looking to leverage that, because there's real power behind it. I've called it, I've kind of put a term of social currency, and it's real, right? It's powerful, but you have to want to do it for the right reasons. Again, it can't be about the followers or the fame. It has to be because you truly want to make impact in the world. You have a story to tell. You have things that you've overcome. You have a real expertise and passion for things in the world. You have a gift. We all have a gift. And then once you're able to really tap into that gift, tap into your true story, your true vulnerability, really tap into why you want to build influence, right? Because it's not about you anymore. You want to serve. And then you start to understand a framework around that, because that's something that I've learned is you can invest heavily into a personal brand, but also be broke. I see a lot of influencers that are completely going out there building their personal brands, but they actually don't also know how to drive income in their lives, and so that they can even drive even more impact out there and understand the business side of things as well. So I think that's just as important.
And I want you to hold that thought. I'm going to interrupt you there because we are going to have Greg of the Shorty Awards on the set here in just a little bit. And we're actually going to talk about just that, is how do you become an influencer and actually make money?
Yeah.
There's a lot of them out there that seem to be broke, like you said, and they're just chasing the fame. They're chasing the followers. Now, something I want to dive deep into is you have a 501c3. You have a nonprofit. You're working with kids.
Yes.
Speak to that.
So after I had my exit, I tapped into my why. I think it's important for all of us to take time always to just reflect, whether it's every year, just take some time and reevaluate your values, reevaluate why you're doing certain things. We get so caught up in, we live in such a fast world now, right? Things are evolving at such a rapid pace. Technologies, becoming, it's unbelievable how quickly next thing you know, we're going to be on Mars, right? Thanks to Elon. So, I think it's important to constantly tap into why you're doing what you're doing. And for me, when I did that after my exit, I realized that I want to go out there and help, young middle school, high school students that were like me, that felt like a failure because I couldn't get good grades. I couldn't couldn't get those straight A's. I couldn't get into the Ivy League school. I couldn't get into the higher ed classes as my other peers, but I was creative. And, I was a different type of learner. And, I think it's really important to understand, those different forms of education. And again, to what I talked about earlier, there's specific skills that I think are lacking in the school system right now. For particularly emotional intelligence, how important that has been in my life. I think EQ is more important than IQ at this point in the world. So, that alone, and the principles of entrepreneurship, financial literacy. Right now, we just partnered up with another organization with a 17-year-old health activist named Haley Thomas, and we're creating an online academy known as Happy Academy that also includes nutrition, health, and wellness. How are kids understanding true nutrition, what they're putting in their bodies, right? Because that's something that I've sacrificed as an entrepreneur. So this is just something when I thought about my why, I was like, I'm going to continue to be a role model. I'm going to continue to, want to be build businesses. But ultimately, when I die, when I think of legacy, other than the fact that I want to have a family like you, I respect you for the family. That's first, my legacy. Secondly, I want to leave something behind that actually helps evolve the education system and gives these young kids real hope and skills to go out there and conquer their dreams and solve the big problems in the world and create, become the next future leaders of tomorrow.
It goes back to something that we were talking about off camera, which is having a servant mindset.
Yeah.
If you have a servant mindset, you'll never go broke. You'll never go hungry. Now, tied to what you're doing with your nonprofit, I really like that you mentioned education and helping others out, teaching them how to become entrepreneurs. One of the questions that also came through here on Twitter for you actually comes from Jose Salcedo, who asks, what do we have to do to change NYC and New Jersey tech culture and get minority-based startups better funding support systems?
Yeah. So, I mean, I know there's a lot of statistics out there with how low a lot of venture capital that's going into women-based startups, especially. I'm a huge advocate of women right now that are out there building businesses. I invest in a lot of women. I understand the statistics as well with the minority demographic, me being Hispanic as well. My grandfather immigrated here. But I will say, I guess, I will say that what I've learned from going back to Newark and being a part of that ecosystem for entrepreneurs, that we need to really help provide the resources from a fundamental standpoint. I think there are investors out there, but what I've noticed is that a lot of these entrepreneurs don't actually understand how to even pitch an investor, how to build a sustainable business model, not just an idea. So I think that if we can have more leaders out there that are doing work like Howard Tillman, that are like me with founders, in communities, in these inner cities across the nation, building hubs where these entrepreneurs have the access to go in there, work side by side with other entrepreneurs, and learn the fundamentals of building a real business. Then they will get funding. So it's simple. It's in my opinion, it's once you understand the fundamentals of the real business, build those fundamentals. The money is out there, and we also need to be so for me, I think it's an education standpoint, and I think the money will come.
What are maybe 2 or 3 things out there that a startup founder like Jose should be doing to go ahead and put himself in position to raise capital?
So first and foremost, I would want to understand his business and how he's being a leader for his business. Is he building a team around him? And I would really want to understand the problem that he's solving and how important that is. And then what is the business model behind it, right? So once I understand, why it's important to him, what the problem is that he's solving, how he's building a team around him, I would want to understand why does he need money, and where is that money actually going, and does he actually have a process, the systems in place to actually manage that money correctly? Because, okay, what if I give you the $1 million that you're looking for right now? Do you actually really know where you're putting that money? I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs go out there, and even the ones that do raise money, they quickly burn it. They don't actually know where to allocate those funds correctly, how to actually not just hire, how to hire the right people around them, how to have the right systems in place, how to actually meet those KPIs, have real standards and best practices within the company to provide an ROI and create real sustainability and growth. So in my eyes, I would really tell them, like, really understand those systems in place, get those fundamentals in order, get the business model in order, prove it. Once you have proof, experiment, be scrappy, get out there to the market. Once you get some real market feedback, once you get some real proven traction, then you're ready. Now you're ready for that funding. Now you're ready for that that infusion, because it's more growth capital.
The word that stands out to me is team. And I'll share a quick story with you. Last Friday, I was in Miami with Grant Cardone. I spent an hour.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Grant?
Yeah, he was on my show.
So I spent an hour with Grant, and it's great. He kind of goes all over the map. And one of the things that really stood out to me that he said, the area where a lot of entrepreneurs fail is as they make money, not raise capital, but as they make money with their business, is they don't reinvest it in their business and they don't reinvest it in people. They want to have that net capital in the bank. They want to say, I'm worth X. So they fail because they don't hire people that can help them double down on putting in the work. So I look at what you've got going on with founders. I've met some of the members of your team, and I've been really impressed with it, because now it gives me some clarity of, like, all right, Gerard has a really strong backing behind him. So how much would you attribute your team today to everything we see from the Gerard Adams personal brand on down to your business ventures?
Oh, it's, I love sports. I think one of the greatest sports that I was recently more introduced to, I got to go on the floor next to Lewis Hamilton for F1, Formula One racing. Someone that I really admire is Lewis Hamilton, right? At such a young age, what he's done in his career as a Formula One racer. If you go to a Formula One race, right, you give it to when they win those championships, you think about the driver.
Right.
But if you go and you look in the pit and how much every detail of that pit, getting those tires so quickly, prior to the race, tuning those cars, testing things, the guy that's talking to Lewis while he's racing. It is a full team effort. I attribute all of my success, all of it, to my team. Elite Daily wouldn't be what it became. There was 200 people that were ride or die. There was so many people that were the reason why we were able to get to that level. And 100% that if you want to get to that next level of success, you have to realize you're not going to be able to do it alone. You have to build.
Who's your favorite coach of all time?
I would say favorite coach. Believe it or not, so one of my mentors, he would definitely say John Woodson. My father would too. I would say for me, for my upbringing, was Pat Riley.
Okay. I thought you were more of a Phil Jackson guy.
Yeah. Pat Riley, I love.
I'm from Miami, so I like Riles.
Yeah. He was a Knick, because I'm a Knick fan. And
so going way old school.
Yeah, it just when I saw Pat Riley, and again, there was the Knicks. It's been tough to be a Knicks fan, but Pat Riley, for me, is just someone that I've always looked up to.
Favorite athlete that you would compare yourself to? You are the blank of your industry.
Right now, playing,
or retired.
I would say Steph Curry.
Okay. Because you got those skills, the crossover skills.
I would say more so just like point guard. I want to find the team. I want to put the best team around me, and I want to give them the ball where they're in the best spot to score.
Okay, that's fair. Before we wrap it up, let's talk about your mentorship program and what you're working on over at Founders.
So we're launching a new program right now, and a lot of people have been coming to me because, again, they want to become world-class influencers, and I'm coming out with something around becoming a world-class influencer and what that is, and people that genuinely have a real expertise in the world. They want to leverage their gift. They want to go out there and consult, coach, for the right reasons. And I don't want to work with people that want to get insta-famous because they want to buy their first Lamborghini. I want to work with the real leaders out there that have this fire inside of them and they want to share it with the world, but they want to do it and know how to actually not make income while they're making massive impact. And there's a certain combination to doing that. And myself, if I didn't have an exit, right? The amount of money that I had to invest to build my personal brand is insane. And if you don't have the right model, just like a business, you will suffer. But it's tough because you have this burning desire to make impact in the world. And I know what that's like, and I want to help the real world-class influencers out there to help elevate their brands so that they can make massive impact and also create that financial freedom for themselves and for their family.
And where can folks out there learn more about your program?
Yeah, so I'll be announcing it shortly, coming into the next month, May, and you can sign up to GerardAdams.com, and I'll be talking about it there.
GerardAdams.com. One of the things that we're going to talk about with Greg on the segment when we come back on is the cost of creating a personal brand. Because one of the things that stood out to me is you said the money that you've had to invest to build yours.
Yeah. So, I mean, it could be, that's the thing. It could be really, like for me, I've invested a lot of money. So I think what's most important is that if there's the whole attracting your audience, scaling your audience, you're gonna have to invest, right? It's like what we talked about earlier. Like if you really want growth, you're gonna have to genuinely invest into doing this, right? Building a show, getting a studio, building out your content calendar, building a team around your personal brand,
post-production,
all that stuff. But I would
you don't edit your work, do you?
Oh, editing wise?
Editing.
Oh no, like my videos?
Yeah, your
no
videos.
way, Digital Jeff, he's like,
Costs money.
Oh, forget it. It's a lot. So that's why it's so important to, on the front end, understand the monetization standpoint too, so that you don't suffer. You're driving massive impact, but you also know how to create that income so that you can fund it. Because it's cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars, to get it to this level.
Excellent. All right, Gerard, thank you so much for coming on the set with me here at Real Talk. We're going to ask you to stay on. We're going to bring on Greg Galant from the Shorty Awards in our next segment, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Real Talk. On this next segment, I am joined by Greg Galant, who is the founder of the Shorty Awards. The Shorty Awards are otherwise known as the Emmys and Oscars of the social media and content creator space. Greg, welcome to Real Talk.
Great to be here.
It's great to have you here on the set. Let's jump right into it. Shorty Awards. Tell us all about it.
Sure. So we just had the 10th annual Shorty Awards honoring the best of social media and the internet. And it's been just a blast to watch it grow over these 10 years. This year we had over 9 million people watch it live. We had the event just about a week ago right here in Times Square at the PlayStation Theater. And it was also really cool to just go through the whole process of the Shorty Awards again. This year we had 6 million people vote in the Shorties, and their votes, along with our jury, decide the winners among the influencers, as well as thousands of brands enter every year and have their work judged by a jury of peers and win awards too.
So you started this company 10 years ago, and I'm really curious to know, back in 2008, when Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Instagram was still at its early infancy from a commercial standpoint, what was your inspiration behind creating the Shorty Awards?
So I've been a lifelong entrepreneur, and in 2005, just as I was graduating college, I started a podcast. There was an interview series with entrepreneurs, so way ahead of its time for podcasting. In 2005, it was the first podcast about entrepreneurship, and I had all these great entrepreneurs on. I had Reid Hoffman on, the founder of LinkedIn, back when LinkedIn was about 30 people. I had the founder of Yelp, founder of Vanguard Group, Brooklyn Brewery, all these other great folks. One of the guys I had on my podcast was Ev Williams, who was working on this really hot company at the time called Odeo. So I interviewed him about Odeo. They launched Odeo, ends up not really going anywhere. But we kind of stayed in touch a bit because we were both in the podcasting world. And then Odeo decided to pivot to a side project they had called Twitter. So that was the beginnings of Twitter. I signed up to Twitter super early. So early, my handle on Twitter is just @Gregory. simply because no one had claimed it yet. So I was the first Gregory to think to go there and type in my name and grab it. And
Do you know what number you were in terms of member sign up?
You know, I don't have the number, not quite as early as you would think.
Okay.
Because back then, everybody would just grab their AIM, their instant messenger screen name, to be their Twitter handle. So there were probably a bunch of Gregorys before me that signed up, but they just tried getting like...
I've not heard of AIM in years.
Oh yeah, we were trying to bring back all the old dead social networks. In fact, at the Shorty Awards this year, we did a really funny in memoriam video for dead social networks, including AIM. But so yeah, but like you have to remember, like back then, now it's cool to have a great handle on social. Back then, nobody thought it meant anything because on AIM, everybody would just have, you know, the initials and their birth year or where they're from or something like that. So a lot of people signed up to Twitter thinking it was a messaging app and not thinking about the handle. I don't know what got into me, but I got the same, I got the username Gregory on Flickr. I later got it on Instagram. So I don't know, something in me drove me to register my first name. Yeah.
Was Gregory also your AIM handle?
No, I had an awful AIM handle. I'm too ashamed to
come on, what was it?
I guess one of the, I'm trying to remember, you know how everyone like having identity crisis in high school, they register a few different ones. And so the one that I had for most was L.I. Greg, because I grew up on Long Island.
Okay.
So thought it was
That's not too bad.
No, they're a lot worse.
Mine was Cuban Preppy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you didn't
That was
decide
my
to stick with
screenshot.
that
I did
brand
not
thing?
decide to stick with Cuban Preppy on Instagram or Twitter.
Have you checked to see if anyone has it
I
yet?
highly doubt that anyone has it. Probably after this episode of Real Talk, there'll be someone out there that goes ahead and grabs
you're
it
gonna have an
just as a
impersonator.
throwback.
Nice.
But yeah, I was Cuban Preppy. I think I was Cgill126.
Cool.
Carlos Gill 83 is my Twitter handle. I think I had that at one point in time on AOL back in the day. But you were L.I. Gregory.
Just Greg.
L.I. Greg.
Actually, at Gregory was my second choice. Someone already had at Greg, so had to go with the extended name that I'm usually not called by.
So it's over 10 years ago. You're with the folks at Twitter. You get at Gregory on there. And then what happens?
So basically, I'm on Twitter really early, and I see there's all this great stuff happening on Twitter. And people, and Twitter was kind of the first time, I think it was the first platform where people could really create, they made it easy for people to create content for an audience other than their friends. Because you have to remember at the time, I was super early to Facebook too, but at that time, only your friends could see your content on Facebook. So there's no way that someone could be really good at making content on Facebook because only their friends would know. Instagram didn't exist yet. YouTube was kind of like that. YouTube was fledgling, but at the time YouTube was more known for just being the place that there'd be viral videos or pirated content. So Twitter felt really special in that sense that people were creating great content on there, but there was no way to be able to find them. So if you're interested in sports or politics or news or any topic, you couldn't really figure out who was good except for just getting ad hoc recommendations from friends back in those days. So we thought we could crowdsource who is the best on social media, starting with Twitter, by building a system that would let people vote with a tweet. When we first had the idea was more like, could we crowdsource who is the best by letting people vote with a tweet? And they were like, well, if we call it an award, people would be more into it. So we invested $8 in buying ShortyAwards.com. And in 2 weekends, we built the first ever system that let people vote with a tweet. I mean, now, of course, it's commonplace. You vote on something, you're encouraged to share it on social. No one had ever done that before in 2008.
And why the name is Shorty Awards?
Tweets are short.
Okay. Ah, got it. It makes sense now.
And the domain was open.
Go figure.
Exactly. And we didn't want to call it like, you know, we started with Twitter, but we always knew there'd be potential beyond there. And of course, now Twitter doesn't even make up a majority of the traffic. So we figured to give it some breathing room to evolve over the years. But when it was started, though, it was just kind of, let's slap this together in 2 weekends and see what happens. And by launching that idea that you could vote with a tweet back in those days when no one else had done it, that caused it to go viral. So within 24 hours, Shorty Awards went from something no one had ever heard of to being the top trending term on Twitter. And then the joke was kind of on us because we realized people would actually want to come to this award show. So when we launched the website for the awards, we said, like, we're going to throw out this idea and kind of crowdsource who's good on social, and we'll see what happens. So we didn't have a venue booked. We didn't have any sponsors. We had nothing lined up aside from the website. And when it went viral, we're like, oh, people actually want to come to this thing. So dropped everything, and in exactly 2 months from launching the site with nothing, to actually putting on the first ceremony, we figured everything out, got sponsors, booked the venue, flew people in, and that's how it got started.
Wow. So you've had some big names on your stages, everyone from DJ Khaled to Casey Neistat. And you've had a lot of creators as well in that time. So maybe name drop, who are some of the folks out there that stand out, that have really personified the Shorty Awards?
Yeah, we've had a whole bunch, and as you point out, it's a range from people who are celebrities who had already built up their fame and remade themselves. I mean, even the first year we had MC Hammer there, who was really cool to meet and interact with, to people like Gary Vaynerchuk, who kind of built their whole world off social media. I mean, the first year he came, he was still just the guy doing Wine Library, a show about wine way before he started his agency and all that, to, of course, Casey Neistat, who a lot of people forget has been making videos for well over a decade and, you know, has really worked hard. I mean, all these people worked tremendously hard to get there, even when it's seemingly effortless, but worked at a long time to get there, to kind of native creators like Tyler Oakley, and this year we had MKBHD, one of the top gadget reviewer on YouTube, and probably one of the most influential gadget reviewers anywhere now. And again, someone who just kind of perfected his craft at making great video and connecting with an audience, and has built it out to be kind of a business in and of itself.
So you have this company, the Shorty Awards. We're going to get to your other company here in a moment, which is Muck Rack. But the Shorty Awards have been compared to the Oscars and the Emmys of the content creator and social media space. Would you say that's an accurate comparison?
Yeah, we're always honored when people look at it that way, and yeah, it's really evolved to being the top award show.
How would you say in the last 10 years social media has evolved?
Oh, it's you know, you can't understate how much it's evolved, and I think our success as an award show has come from adapting, and it's really like nothing else. You know, like I imagine the Oscars had to adapt early on when films went from being silent films to having voice. They probably had to have a voice category and then add colorization. But most award shows really don't have to change that much year to year. Mm-hmm. Whereas for us, every year we're like, oh my God, how much has changed in just a year, and how much do we have to change the Shorties? So I mean, I remember when Vine was taking off, we were very quick to make a Vine category, and then of course we were very sad to retire our Vine category. When Vine went out, when Snapchat was first coming up, we were very early on the Snapchat trend with awarding the best on there, which is partly how we ended up with getting DJ Khaled honored at the Shorty Awards. And every year we're always looking, okay, what social platforms new, which ones are on the outs, and then also how are they evolving? Because even within a social platform, like YouTube's a great example where it shifted from being a platform more about one-off viral videos to being a platform about creators and about following people. Or look at Instagram, where it shifted from what used to be it was initially successful because of its simplicity. It was just you'd post one square photo, maybe with a filter, and now looking at it where there are stories and video clips and so many ways to use it. So we're always spending the full year looking out for what's a new social platform or how's behavior changing, so we can update the award show appropriately.
Now, on the back end of the Shorty Awards, you have all these content creators that are all vying to win a Shorty. And trust me, when I was going hard on Snapchat 2 or 3 years ago, I was even trying to get into the Shorties as well. How do you guys manage this process in terms of who gets nominated, who wins an award? Maybe speak to that.
Sure, and it's important to point out there are two sides of the Shorty Awards. There's one where we honor individuals, so creators, influencers, celebrities. And then we have another side of the Shorty Awards where we honor brands and agencies for their work on social media. And the competition works different on both sides. So for individuals, for the creators, for the celebrities, they get nominated. And then once they're nominated, it's determined by a mixture of votes from the public. Every year we have millions of votes. This year was over 6 million votes from the public. And then our Academy weighs in with ratings of all the work of all the creators. And then we have an algorithm that combines the two, and that's what determines the finalists and ultimately the winner of the award. So it's kind of cool because it's both seeing how passionate someone's fan base is, how much they activate their fan base, but then it's not solely a popularity contest because, of course, that can get skewed. And we also do a lot of auditing to see if people are using bots and whatnot. But beyond that, it does normalize it. So maybe you have a really engaged fan base, or you did something really special this year on social media, but you don't have the same volume of fans as someone more established. So it gives everyone kind of a shot at winning the award. And then for the brands and agencies, there's an entry process they can enter. And one of the really special things about the Shorties is in their entry, they can embed a lot of their best media, videos from the past year, tell the story, mention a lot of the metrics, and then that's judged solely by a jury of their peers. So they don't have to get any votes to be able to win that for a brand or agency, but there's also an audience honor that is determined by votes. And it's very fun too, because we're the only award show that has a full gallery of all the past entries from brands and agencies. So if you ever find yourself looking to do a campaign with a brand and you need to just get some inspiration and see what other brands are doing, you can just go on the Shorty Award website and see that entire gallery from thousands and thousands of brands and agencies and see their work over the past several years.
Now, I'm going to take a pun from DJ Khaled, keys to success. He's been on your stage before. He's also exploded as a content creator over the last few years, much in part to Snapchat and Instagram storytelling. We had Gerard Adams on the set before. We were talking about personal branding. From a personal branding standpoint, would you say that that is the key to success for content creators today in terms of put the actual corporate brand aside and focus in on you as a person? Is that what makes these content creators successful, or is there a secret sauce behind the scenes that isn't necessarily apparent to the average viewer?
Yeah, I think there's a few factors, and of course, it's always hard to come up with hard and fast rules, because part of what makes the creator successful is that they're different. And I think that's important to keep in mind, that the creators that break out and become stars, they're never doing the exact same thing as another creator. They're always finding a unique voice, a unique take, or a unique platform. So there's, of course, basics you need to know, and I think all Gerard's points were great and really worth following. You have to think through the economics and how you're going to do it, but you also have to take some risks to get ahead, because if you're coming into the game now and you decide, hey, I'm going to get ahead the exact same way Casey Neistat did it and start with a vlog and do it the exact same way, I mean, maybe it'll work, but it's tough because a lot of people are doing it. That's the new standard. But if you look at the people who did get ahead, a lot of them were the ones who were willing to jump on a new platform, like Casey Neistat making YouTube videos when that didn't seem like a good career move, or DJ Khaled getting into Snapchat before Snapchat was the thing everybody was talking about. There were a lot of stars that made huge names starting on Vine that have successfully crossed over to other mediums, but they started on Vine before Vine was a big thing. So with a lot of these trends, if you're a creator and you're currently unknown and completely obscure, you should always be looking for what's a new platform out there, or what's a new way I could use a platform that no one's doing it yet, that'll give you the shot at being a real breakout star, because you're the one pioneering it, versus saying, how do I do this exactly the same way as all of my heroes? And that's how the Shorty Awards got started. Yeah. If someone tried to start an award show today with viral voting on Twitter, it's not going to go viral without a ton of money and resources, because that channel has been exhausted. But in 2008, no one was doing it, so it was possible to break out without a big budget.
I agree. I think one of the things that hinders content creators is trying to be the next Casey Neistat, trying to be the next Gary Vaynerchuk, instead of just trying to be yourself. But one interesting point that you brought up there is chasing the new shiny object. And I actually have to disagree and say that from my perspective, there's more to gain when you're creating content on an already established platform. Let's face it, Facebook has over 2 billion daily active users. Instagram, close to 1 billion, if not over 1 billion at this point. YouTube, same. So when you go chase this new shiny object, you're literally starting somewhere. It's almost like walking into a neighborhood where there's only a few houses built, but there's a lot of long-term potential. And don't get me wrong, I see it and get the potential there, no pun intended. But then when content creators take their eye off of what's already in front of them, now they're hindering themselves because they're not tapping into what's already in place. Do you agree with that?
Well, I agree with you if you're already established. So, both of us have clearly been doing this for a while, and we have businesses and we have to maintain stuff. And this is how, I'm not jumping on every new social network personally.
There was one recently, I forgot the name of it, but maybe like a month ago, coming out South by Southwest. Everyone's saying you got to jump on this new social network because it's like the next big thing. 2 weeks later, no one was talking about it. Do you know what I'm
That's the
referring
challenge.
to?
But you see, my advice, so I agree with you for someone who's a content creator who's established, right? There's no need for the Casey Neistats of the world to jump on some new platform that just comes out. He'll be able to go on it when it gets big and all of his followers will come to him there. But for someone who's obscure with no resources, what I'm saying is that they should be on the big platforms too, but if you're obscure and you have no resources or a few resources, your way to get ahead is to take a chance on something new. And you know what? It's going to blow up more often than not, like that social network you were referencing. But you have to take a bunch of chances when you're obscure and try to find your breakout success. A lot of high beta chances. But again, and this makes me think back to the question of economics that you guys were talking about before. For you and I, the opportunity cost is big. Like if one of us decides, hey, I'm going to spend 2 months learning this new social network, that's 2 months I'm not figuring out, hey, how can I make my business grow 10% bigger and all that. But if you're obscure, and a lot of the people who are successful creators, it's no accident that they're in high school, in college, sometimes they're even younger, because their opportunity cost is very low. They're not deciding between, do I go for this job that's going to pay me $100,000, or do I take a chance on the social network? It's what do I do with my free time? So, if you're obscure and you have that kind of luxury of being able to take some risks and take some chances, that's where it pays to take the high beta chances on newer platforms, or doing something no one's done before, using an old platform in a new way. So yeah, that shot at a breakout success, but you do have to realize, each time you take the shot, you're probably going to fail. And the key is the perseverance to keep going from shot to shot.
I think the fine line also comes if you already do have an established following on one of these other social networks. You have to be very careful how you communicate to your existing network that you're on a new platform. And I say that because personally, I've made a jump from Snapchat over to Instagram over the last year. Who hasn't, right? And I know my community over on Snapchat, which I refer to as the Snapchat fam, will still hit me up and say, hey, why are you not on Snapchat anymore? Why are you over on Instagram? And I've seen, just like you have over the years, these ebbs and flows of where the current goes. And I'm one of those folks that, I look at this as distribution. At the end of the day, the community is the community, but these are distribution mediums more than anything. And if you like my content, you're going to find a way to consume it. If it's not on Snapchat, it's on Instagram. If it's not on Instagram, it's over on Facebook or on YouTube. And that's just how the game works.
Yeah, and part of it too is that the distribution can sometimes define what the content is. So why are TV shows half an hour or an hour? Because that's what TV was. It wasn't that someone was just sitting around saying the perfect way to tell this story is to shoot 22 minutes of story and then leave 8 minutes for advertising. That was how the TV medium worked. When Vine came along, people started making 6-second videos because that's how the distribution worked. And with YouTube now, of course, there's no hard limits on how long YouTube videos are, but because people are consuming YouTube videos in a certain way, hey, maybe I can get away with a 10-minute vlog. Probably can't get away with an hour vlog because even though not that many people are watching it on TV screen on their couch. Same with a Snapchat when you're making content for that, or for Instagram story. It's not a coincidence that you're shooting the way you are. You're shooting the way you are, adapting for that medium and for the devices people are going to consume on. So it can flow both ways. On one hand, great content creators have a story to tell, they have a vision, but they also have to keep in mind, how does that distribution mechanism work? What kind of device is someone going to consume their content on?
So I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I hope you don't mind. Who are maybe 2 or 3 content creators that come to mind that are absolutely killing the game right now?
Well, MKBHD just won a Shorty Award, top content creator on YouTube and great gadget reviewer. And, I just saw a clip of him. I got to meet him at the Shorties, and very smart, humble guy. And saw a clip of him where he was saying a lot of people say, how do I get started in video? What kind of equipment do I need? And his answer was, it's in your pocket. You can just use your iPhone. Of course, at some point you want to step it up like you've done here. But to me, that was a really inspirational message, just that we're at a place in time now where anyone can start creating content, and they no longer have to think, oh, can I, borrow a camcorder from somebody or scrape together tens of thousands of dollars so I can try shooting a movie to show people what I can do. It's really cool now to see anyone can do it.
Who else?
Yeah, see, aside from him, I mean, of course, DJ Khaled is always a great pick-me-up when you need it.
Often use, I don't know if you know this, I do a lot of keynotes to corporate audiences at conferences, and often say my closing tagline is brands should be more like DJ Khaled and less like a brand. And what I mean by that is if you look at DJ Khaled, his success, and DJ Khaled, don't get me wrong, markets to you. He markets Ciroc, he markets his merchandise, but he does it in a way that comes off as very authentic. And we talk about authenticity a lot in marketing and content creation, right? But every brand out there is struggling with this today because they've hired marketers, but they're not letting the marketers actually show their faces and market. They're constantly marketing the products, the services, and the logo, whereas you look at DJ Khaled, and he's somewhat of a relatable figure. Even though he's a celebrity, he at least walks you through what he does, for breakfast, what he's doing in midday, and then what he's doing at night, and everything in between, and that's that likability factor that not only makes DJ Khaled successful, but others as well. Yeah,
it's like Bonnie Fuller said, celebrities, they're just like us. And that's what people want with their creators and everything else. And you can show, I mean, of course, people always show a certain side of them that's not their full day, but it's what you get through social media now, especially through the story format in Snapchat and Instagram. It's much more candid than you ever had before. And in fact, that's what makes it work, right? Because if you did your Instagram story or Snapchat like this in a studio with lighting, no one's going to really relate to it. It's because you're talking to your camera, your off moments and your downtime. That's what makes it work. And I think also like that's something really different about creators now, because when you think about who celebrities used to be, they were actors famous for fiction. They were famous for playing a certain character, and you really didn't know anything about, who's George Clooney, who are any of these people, like, because you admire them for their ability to be someone else. So all you know of them is maybe an anecdote they would have shared on a late night show, and even that was something that was highly scripted. Whereas now the creators are famous for more or less being who they are. Of course, everyone shows a certain side of themselves, but a lot of these creators got their start using their webcam in their bedroom before they had any resources, before they could script it. So, it was a pretty authentic version of who they are. And it's really the first time when you think about it that people are famous for more or less being who they are versus for playing someone else. And I think that's just something fascinating to watch and has been a really cool part of running the Shorties.
I think for me, what's fascinating as a marketer, someone who working in brand roles has hired creators before, is seeing the back end. What goes into creating that 6-second, what used to be a Vine, what today is, the 15-second Instagram story or 60-second video on Instagram, like the back end piece of it. These are guys and girls are actually sitting down and storyboarding. They're articulating out and they're thinking through this narrative of what they're going to tell. Some of them every single day are doing this, and that's their life and their career. Now, one of the things that Gerard mentioned in the segment before is it's expensive to be a content creator. Would you agree?
It depends. So it's expensive if you or I want to be a content creator. I mean,
why
you clearly are. Because we're further along in our
Because we're older guys?
We're older guys, right? I mean, I have a business, you have a business. We have opportunity cost. And same, this is why I tell a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs, like, try not to wait too long, because if you're further along in your career and, you have your 6-figure job and you're making good money and you have a cost of living, you're traveling, you have a family, like, it's tough to quit and then do your own business, because in essence, the big cost of being a content creator is your own time. So by the time your own time is expensive, then it's really expensive to be a content creator. And it is for Gerard, for any of us, and it is for anyone who just wants to quit their job today, who's far along in their career, and start doing it. But if you're listening to this and you're in high school, you're in college, you currently have a whole bunch of free time that you're spending, watching TV, getting drunk with your friends, guess what? Your time's not worth a lot of money. And the cool thing about creating content now is that anyone can do it. It takes a lot of time to edit. It takes a lot of time to shoot good video and figure out what's good and what not. So that's why it's expensive. But if your time's cheap and you're willing to put in the time and learn how to do it all on your own, the good news is it's cheap for you.
Right.
And the cool thing about now compared to decades ago, even 10 years ago, is the equipment's cheap. You can shoot a good-looking YouTube video with your phone, or with with $500, $1,000 worth of equipment. Whereas 10, 20 years ago, to shoot that same video would have cost you tens of thousands of dollars in equipment.
I'll share a quick story with you. My
Sure.
oldest child, my son, is 12, and he wants to work for ESPN when he grows up. So his name's Carlos as well. So I always say, Carlos, you know what? If you want to work for ESPN, I can actually show you a way that you could probably bypass journalism school, and it's called being a content creator on YouTube talking about sports. Literally, watch ESPN every single day and go on Instagram and go on YouTube and just talk about sports. Go on Twitch and talk about sports. Because what's going to happen is between the age of 12, where you're at now, to the next 7 to 8 years when you become 18 and 19, people are going to already see your name, Carlos Gil, so many times associated with sports that all it's going to take is for that one producer for ESPN to say, wow, I like this kid's charisma. He speaks well. He's fluid. Because let's face it, when you're creating content, you're much more fluid. 4 years ago when I started my YouTube vlog, I wouldn't have been able to come here in a TV studio and have this conversation and not be nervous. It wouldn't have happened. So that's always my advice to my own kids. What advice would you give either to your own children or to younger content creators out there that are sitting back and watching the Casey Neistats of the world and aspiring to be like them?
Yeah, and by the way, he might probably wouldn't want to work for ESPN once he finds out what it's like to have 1 million direct followers and to totally control his audience, and then, switch that for having producers and having to go through a lot of middlemen and how you can reach your content. But, I think that kind of drives to the point that for young content creators, one is just start doing it. Another is realize that, your content's going to suck at the beginning. Like, it takes a long time to get really good at creating content. I mean, maybe there's some natural-born content creators out there, but for most of the creators that you watch that are doing amazing videos, amazing vlogs, you're watching what they're doing today after doing it for a decade and spending countless hours doing it. So one of the keys is don't get discouraged at the start, because you're going to look at your content and then compare that to the content of someone who's been doing it for 10 years. And there are some people who do that once, they make their first vlog, they look at what a Casey Neistat vlog looks like, well, mine sucks, I'm out of this, I'm going to go pursue something else. And there are some people who realize, you know what, I'm just going to keep doing them until they get good. And maybe you have to make a dozen, maybe you have to make 100, maybe you have to make 1,000. But a lot of great content creation just comes from practice and honing your skill and putting stuff out there and seeing what works with the audience, what doesn't, and doubling down on that.
Excellent. Now, before we bring Gerard back up on for the next segment, let's talk about your other business. Because besides running and owning the Shorty Awards, you also have an agency, which is called Muck Rack.
Yeah, it's actually a software product, and we both agencies and brands use our software. And it actually came out of the Shorty Awards, where the first year we did the Shorty Awards went viral on Twitter within 24 hours. And we didn't have any kind of PR strategy, but in those first 24 hours, I got calls from New York Times, Wall Street Journal, BBC, a dozen other outlets, and they all ended up covering it. The Shorty Awards was the first event the Wall Street Journal ever live tweeted, the New York Times wrote about it. And having been an entrepreneur for a while and having launched a bunch of stuff, I know it's usually really hard to get press for something you want to do. And here it all came to us. So I was trying to understand, what changed, what's happening here. And I realized journalists were using social media to figure out what to write about. And a lot of what you'd see on TV, in the newspaper, on websites was, even though it was distributed over traditional media, it was sourced on social. So I thought, the media's kind of changing, the news cycle's speeding up, so what can we do about this? And that led us to launch Muck Rack, M-U-C-K-R-E-C-K. And Muck Rack is now a software platform, so both brands and agencies use it to find the right journalist to cover their story, monitor the news, and build reports. So basically, you go in there, search for any keyword, and it'll show you which journalist wrote about that the most and tweeted about the most. So you could go in there, say, hey, let's see which journalists are talking about NASDAQ the most if we're going to pitch them on an idea about stock exchanges. Or show me which journalists, we do this for the Shorty Awards, show me which journalists have written the most about the Shorty Awards last year so we can pitch them on writing about it this year. Or if we're honoring Casey Neistat, show me which journalists wrote the most articles about Casey so we can email them and pitch them on writing about this. And that company's been growing very quickly. We've bootstrapped it and up to over 40 employees now.
Wow, excellent. Greg, thank you so much for joining me here on the set. We're going to actually keep you on the set. We're going to bring Gerard Adams back on here in a moment. But before we do, where can the viewers out there learn more about you? And more importantly, how can they follow your businesses?
Sure. So I'm really easy, just @Gregory on Twitter or Instagram. And more importantly, of course, check out the Shorty Awards. Just type in Shorty Awards to any social media platform or shortyawards.com. Same with Muckrack, @Muckrack or muckrack.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Greg.
Great. Thanks for having me.
On our next segment, we're going to wrap it up with the Real Talk Roundup. Stay tuned. All right, we're back here on Real Talk with the Real Talk Roundup. Welcome back to the set, Gerard.
Thank you for bringing me on.
Now, one of the things that we've talked about in both segments here today is the price or the cost of becoming a content creator, quality content creator. And Greg was saying that today anyone can use an iPhone and produce content and potentially go viral. I know we were talking about this on our segment, Gerard, in terms of high production quality. We both invest in videographers, cameras, editing. So there's two sides here.
Yeah.
Listening to Greg, do you feel that it's absolutely necessary that someone invest in these tools, or should they just put themselves out there?
I mean, the one thing that he said that I really related to is that, like, everyone has to do it their own way. Like, everyone has to be different, you know? Everyone has to kind of be unique. And whatever that means for you. Like, for me, I wanted to do a series that was cinematic and high production in the way that I was showing day in the life of modern day leaders. But, you know, for someone else, like, just picking up the iPhone and just being, you know, wild and just being yourself, you know, and doing it consistently, I think it's just, at the end of the day, it's what works for you. And I think it comes down to consistency. No matter what you choose to do, whether you decide to just use an iPhone or you decide to get a team around you and do high production, commit and really be consistent in that content. Otherwise, you know, I think that's what you won't really truly get the momentum.
Now, Greg, influencer marketing has become a big business. There are agencies out there today. There are software, technologies that assist brands with identifying influencers and managing these campaigns. So influencer marketing has become big business, $1 million business. Do you foresee this continuing? Do you see this trend continuing to rise in terms of influencers themselves making lots of money off of these social networks? Or do you think the social networks are going to peel back like Facebook has with its algorithm?
Well, influencer marketing, in a way, it's not even a new trend. I mean, Nike paired up with Michael Jordan and made billions of dollars decades ago using him as an influencer to sell shoes. And people have been, largely in the world of athletes, but with a lot of celebrities, this idea of bringing on an influencer to promote your brand has been around for a long time. It's now dubbed influencer marketing. The big difference, of course, is there are a lot more influencers now than there used to be. It used to be there could only be a handful of celebrities and only a handful of athletes that anybody knew because media was very restricted. There were only so many TV channels and only so many newspapers. Whereas now there's this kind of long tail, this infinite sea of influencers, and across lots of little niches. So if you're into food and travel, there's an influencer. If you're into pets, there's a whole bunch of influencers. In any city, there are influencers. So there are many more than ever before, and these challenges to scale it. So I think influencer marketing is here to stay. It's been a part of how things worked for a long time. I think regardless of how the algorithms change, all these social networks need content. A lot of influencers have been very smart about diversifying and being on YouTube, being on Instagram, but also maybe having a podcast and building an email list, maybe even doing events. So they've found multiple ways to reach their audience. I do think right now we're in a time of a lot of confusion. So there have been a lot of people who've been able to, who don't really have an audience, be able to buy audiences using bots and whatnot, and kind of finagle brands that are just getting into this area and don't know what to look for to spend their money on wisely. So I think they'll, it's probably a shake-up with people, brands really focusing their dollars and figuring out, like, okay, who are the influencers that really help me reach my audience versus someone who was just sold to me who had a lot of followers but doesn't really engage with an audience.
You bring up some interesting points there, and you mentioned bots and fake followers. What should brands be looking for specifically when working with an influencer?
Yeah, there are a number of tactics they can employ. One is looking not only at how many followers an influencer has, but who's engaging with their content. And not just how many engagements. You want to also look at how many engagements, but you look through who are the actual people engaging with that content. You can then click on their profile page and sometimes like, okay, well, this account was created 1 week ago and liked one video and it's this video, so what are the chances someone signed up to Instagram just to like this one photo versus that being a bot? Versus seeing like, hey, is this actually, do these look like real people? Another too is you can look at the network of influencers because the influencers themselves have great taste. So who are the, do they have other influencers and creators following them and actually complimenting their work and collaborating with them? Or are they just kind of coming out of nowhere all of a sudden and getting lots of likes? So, there's no exact science to it, and it's a bit of a cat and mouse game where people are coming up with new algorithms, people get more sophisticated. But generally looking, quality followers and other influencers are two great signals.
Now I'm going to open up this question for both of you guys. Are influencers and creators today truly making money?
Well, we're seeing plenty of them are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, there's a long tail. There are a lot of people who are aspiring and not making much money yet, or maybe no money yet, but a lot of them are making millions of dollars a year.
Interesting. And these are, I would say, like the mega creators, correct? The ones that have millions of followers, get a lot, thousands of people engaging with their content?
Yeah, we see the mega creators are the ones that can command the millions, but we do see there are a lot of people in the middle where, they work hard. Maybe they'll make, high 5 figures or low 6 figures a year. So for them, it's a job. Like they work hard. It's not like they're just, there's this kind of illusion of being an influencer where you see like, oh, it's just like me living my life, taking selfies, and they're making 100K. There are a lot of people where they're making 100K, but it's their full-time job. They are working their ass off to make this great content and connect with an audience. And I think that's great because they've created a job for themselves. They have to work hard still, but they're doing what they love. And I know a lot of them quit jobs, being in corporate America before that to do that. So, there are a lot of people, that kind of middle area I think is kind of the unsung hero of the influencer world.
Now for you, Gerard, what would you say is the hardest thing for you in terms of being a recognizable personality online?
I think the hardest part is definitely the vulnerability part. It's getting comfortable, and I think with it's the superpower too, right? That once you can really start to connect with your audience in a way where you're okay with being completely raw and yourself, and on both sides, and that's a hard part because everybody, you love showing the lifestyle. You see a lot of these influencers that make, they make a ton of money, right? But their feed, it's almost perfect, right? Because they're selling the aspiration of something. But I think that I really love the influencers that start to open up and start to show also the other side of when life happens to them and they have to be a little bit more vulnerable. And I do believe that that's where you really connect. You really start to connect with your audience.
Now, I see a lot of content nowadays from, let's just say, thought leaders or those at the top that are posting their cars and their house and their boats. And it's almost like they're selling this illusion that if you follow them in their footsteps, you're going to fall into that wealth too. What do you guys say about that? Is that a very dangerous path to follow, or is it realistic?
Well, I think for creators, and I give the same advice to aspirational entrepreneurs, that you have to love what you're doing you have to love doing what you're doing. You can't be, I don't think, a creator or an entrepreneur because you want the boat. If you want the boat, go into investment banking, right? It's a great, there are careers made for people who want to work hard to get money to do stuff, and that are a much safer bet if you want to just make a lot of money. But I think being a creator or an entrepreneur, like, you have to put so much of yourself into it. There's no guarantees. You could work your ass off and get nothing for it. So if you don't just love what you're doing and put that into it, it'll show, and people won't want to watch your channel if you're a creator. People won't want to join you in your business if you're an entrepreneur, and ultimately it won't work. So there is a lot of it where you got to put your mindset around, do I love doing the work? And then hoping that all that stuff follows, but not do it for that stuff.
Yeah. I think it's also about, how do you want to be, perceived? How do you want to make people feel? How do you, how do you want to inspire? And understanding that you're putting yourself out there, right? So you don't want to, you don't want to just fake it till you make it and show all the high life, and if it's not really who you are, it's, so I think at the end of the day, it's perfectly fine to be someone out there who wants to show a certain lifestyle, but it's about showing truly what matters to you, and doing it for the reason of really inspiring. There's a lot of people that I follow that have an unbelievable lifestyle, but I just make sure that there's a deeper meaning behind it all, right? Of how they've gotten that success, and why that there's more than just that. It's deeper than that. There's more to their legacy that they're looking to build, but they still high aspirational things. I think so. It's perfectly fine to show all of that, but I think when someone's thinking about building a personal brand, just know that it's almost like your new resume, and it's also somewhat of your legacy, right? One day, it's interesting. You sometimes see some people that become really famous this past year. I've been seeing now more than ever, people that have become really famous, build an unbelievable social media, and they actually pass away. And there's been some hip hop artists that have overdosed. There's been people, and you can look back and kind of, it's this, which our parents, our ancestors never had that, right? We can actually look and kind of see a display of the choices that they've made and the things that they've put out, and it's
dealing with trolls and haters and things that are in your face ultimately.
I'm just thinking that whatever you put it out because it's really meaningful to you, because that's something that you're leaving behind, and you're doing it for other people to be inspired by the way you live your life and your purpose ultimately. So I think that everyone should share their story, but just do it for the right reasons. And if you want to share your boat and you want to share your lifestyle, go for it. Own it. But make sure that you also share why you do what you do, and why you work hard every day to get those things. And that's all I would say.
Out of curiosity, gentlemen, where do you spend the most time on social media, whether consuming or creating content?
Yeah, I'm old school. I still love Twitter. It's a lot of fun. Just I love kind of the witty, when someone can get a witty one-liner, and a great way to follow the news and what's going on. Spend a lot of time on Instagram too. It's a fun platform, and started sharing a lot of stories on there.
Gerard?
I would say Instagram has been my number one platform that I enjoy, because I'm visual. Twitter, it's really cool to see Twitter just continuing going. It's just a unique platform, and I love it. I love Twitter as well. YouTube, I feel is the hardest, but I think it's the most engaging. And if you can really do well on YouTube, it really, I think, is the best platform that I've seen translate into another platform like Instagram, where the engagement goes through the roof.
I agree. I think that YouTube, I'd like a challenge personally. It seems like both of you guys do as well. I see YouTube being the hardest social network to really scale and dominate. And it's a true storytelling platform, if you use it like you do with Leaders Create Leaders and vlogs and whatnot. Closing note, gentlemen, I'm going to open it up to both of you. Where do you see social media headed from here?
Yeah, it's hard to, the big thing I see with social media is that there's always unexpected twists and turns. No one expected the story the idea of the story medium pioneered by Snapchat and then, of course, adopted by Instagram. I don't think anyone saw that coming until it did, except for maybe Evan over at Snapchat. So, you know, it's always really hard to say. I mean, the one kind of mega trend I see with it is that video is just getting better and better, both in terms of how it can be created and how easy it is to download and consume. So I think that these social networks are going to continuing to push more and more to the video side as opposed to the tech side.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just excited to see it all evolve. I mean, I'm really excited about Facebook right now and the moves that Mark Zuckerberg will be taking going forward. I know that he wants to compete, you know, I'm sure with YouTube right now, and, you know, I see a lot happening with Facebook Watch and, you know, going live on Facebook. And so I'm really interested to see, you know, where Facebook's headed as well. And it seems like there's going to be, it's very competitive, but ultimately it's exciting. And I think, you know, find the platform that works for you and go all in on it, and then, you know, slowly have fun. I mean, just have fun with social media. You know, don't take it all too seriously, right? Because it's such an amazing way for all of us to just go out there and share life. Life's short, you know, and now we have such an opportunity to document things like never before. So I'm excited about the future.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me here today.
Great. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. Signing off from NASDAQ here in Times Square. Thank you so much to our viewers for watching this episode of Real Talk. If you liked this episode, be sure to subscribe. Also, hit that little bell so you can be notified next time that we publish a new episode. Thanks so much for watching.